So if you've tried to find a place to rent in the UK lately, you already know the drill, right? You see an ad, you call, and there are already 50 people ahead of you. It's just endless queues, bidding wars for, frankly, average flats, and prices that just seem to go up and up. It feels completely broken. And the problem, at its heart, is brutally simple. Rents are going through the roof, and at the exact same time, the number of places actually available to rent is shrinking. It's a classic squeeze, and it's putting millions of us in a really, really tough spot. But, this isn't just a simple case of, oh, there's high demand. There's something deeper going on here, a reason why the market just can't seem to adjust, why it feels so, well, stuck. So what is really happening behind the scenes? Okay, let's get into it, because the answer is actually hiding in this one really powerful economic idea. And once you get this concept, I promise, the whole mess of the UK rental market finally starts to make sense. And that hidden force? It's called elasticity. Now, I know that sounds super academic, a bit jargony, but stick with me because it is the absolute key to understanding why your rent is so high and why your choices are so few. So what on earth is it? Well, price elasticity of supply is just a fancy way of asking a really simple question. If rents go up, how many more rental properties actually pop up on the market? Does the supply of housing kind of stretch to meet that new price, or does it just stay rigid? Let me give you an easy way to think about it. Imagine a t-shirt factory. If the price of t-shirts suddenly goes up, the factory can just, run an extra shift, maybe hire a few more people, and boom, thousands more t-shirts. That supply is elastic. It stretches. But housing? You can't just build a new apartment block overnight. It's slow, it's complicated, you need land, you need permits. The supply is inelastic. And that difference, well, it changes everything. Okay, so now let's apply this idea to the UK. Because when you look at the actual numbers, they are genuinely shocking. This is where you see just how uniquely inflexible Britain's market really is. So let me ask you a question. Let's say house prices, and by extension, the potential rent you could get, shoot up by a pretty big 10%. Over the next 10 years, how much more housing do you think actually gets built in response? Maybe 5%? 3%? The answer is just 1%. That's it. A huge 10% signal from the market that we need more homes results in a tiny, almost unnoticeable 1% increase in housing over a whole decade. What that means in economist speak is a supply elasticity of just 0.1. It basically means our housing supply is incredibly rigid. It's inflexible. It barely reacts to what the market is screaming for. And that has massive consequences for all of us. And here is where things get really serious, because this rigidity creates this dangerous ripple effect. It means that even well-intentioned policies, things designed to help tenants, can actually end up hurting them. Why? Because you're applying them to a system that just cannot bend. So here's how it plays out. Picture this. The government brings in a new rule that adds costs for landlords. Now, because the housing supply is so inelastic, there's no wave of new housing coming onto the market to absorb that cost. So landlords are left with pretty much two choices. One, they pass the costs directly onto you, the tenant, through higher rent. Or two, they decide it's just not worth the hassle anymore and they sell up, which shrinks the number of rental homes even further. For renters, it is a total lose-lose situation. And listen, this isn't just some theory. This is what's happening right now. The total number of homes available to rent in the UK is already down about 23% from where it was before 2020. That is a massive chunk of the market just gone. And this trend is picking up speed. Surveys are showing that a huge number of landlords, 1 in 3 in fact, are thinking about getting out of the game. And every time a landlord sells their property to someone who's going to live in it themselves, that's one less home available for the rest of us to rent. The squeeze just gets tighter. It's not just about policy either. You've got these bigger economic forces, like the recent interest rate hikes, making everything even worse. You see, homeowners who have these super cheap mortgages are now locked in. They don't want to sell and move because they'd have to get a new, much more expensive mortgage. This means fewer properties are coming up for sale, which in turn means even fewer can flow into the rental sector. An already rigid supply gets even stiffer. So you might be sitting there thinking, okay, but surely it's this bad everywhere. Well, no. When you put the UK into a global context, you really start to see just how unique and how bad our situation is. When you compare us to other countries, it is just stark. Look at Germany. It's also pretty inelastic, but it's still more responsive than the UK. But then look at the United States. It's a completely different world. their housing supply is dramatically more elastic. This isn't some universal problem. It really is a particularly British one. I mean, just think about this for a second. The data shows the US housing supply is over 10 times more responsive to price changes than the UK's. When prices go up over there, especially in areas with fewer regulations, builders can actually build and expand the supply to meet that demand. Here in the UK, they just can't.
So, this brings us to the most important question of all, right? For the millions of us renting in the UK, what is the solution? Where on earth do we go from here?
Look, the really crucial takeaway is this. That awful squeezed feeling you have as a renter, it comes from one fundamental problem, an inelastic housing supply. That's what explains why rents are soaring, it's why policies that are supposed to help can actually backfire, and tragically, as more landlords sell up, this shortage is now becoming a leading cause of homelessness. The only way out is to tackle that root cause. If you take away just one single thing from this explainer, please let it be this. Any policy that doesn't fundamentally increase the number of homes available is like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg. The entire focus has to shift from just managing a shortage to actually ending it. And that leaves us with a final, really critical question to think about. We all agree that better rights for tenants and higher quality homes are absolutely vital goals. But as long as our housing supply stays this broken, are we just shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic? Without first fixing the fundamental problem of building more homes, is it possible that every attempt to fix the rental market will just end up making that squeeze even tighter?